Oh my. Okay. I've stayed around. Oh shit. I'm going to damage a lot. Yes, accelerating this thing. Why? Raise.
President Vargas, and then they will do 3 10-kilometre laps around the port area down by the water and make their way back to the Sambadrome eventually. But it's not the hilliest course. The women went 2:24.04 for their marathon. The quickest time of the year was 2:19.41 in 2016. So what we saw was a time that was around about 5 minutes outside of that, but part of that was to do with those weather conditions you were talking about, because it was pretty warm and there was a high attrition rate in the women's marathon a week ago.
Yeah, if you look at Sungong's personal best, she's a high 220 performer, and she won in 2:24.02. It is sometimes hard to compare different courses, but yes, I think at the very least we're talking about a time probably 3, maybe even 4 to 5 minutes slower than the fastest time in the world, which is set by the man who is in this field and is on paper the favourite for the gold medal, Eliud Kipchoge, the Kenyan, who is a 2-time Olympic medalist over the 5,000 metres. Great success early on in his career, but he's arguably enjoyed his best days of all on the roads of the big city marathons, and he came within a whisker of beating Dennis Kimeto's world record in London earlier this year in April. I was there to watch that race, and in fact, sometimes in the major championship marathons you don't have the quickest men in the world, but the 4 fastest in 2016 are all here. 2 Kenyans, 2 Ethiopians, so we're all teed up for a great battle here. Now the rain is coming down pretty hard. It was just a bit of a trickle when we left the hotel very early this morning, but that's a proper downpour. The Brazilians don't look too happy. I don't think they're as used to the rain as we are back home in Britain.
Quite possibly not. And here is the start list, and it's going to take quite a while to get through these, because we do have in excess of 150 athletes, and the Ethiopians and the Kenyans obviously will be some of the people who attract the attention. 31-year-old Eliud Kipchoge we've spoken about. He's run 7 marathons, he's won 6 of them, and his time in London was 2:03.05. The defending champion is the 27-year-old Ugandan Stephen Kiprotich, who ran 2:08.01 in London when he won. He was also the 2013 world champion and 6th in 2015. Solomon Mutai was 3rd in the world championships. Gurmeet Gebrselassie is the world champion, so it's a field full of quality, and as usual we'd expect the African nations to be up the front of the field, and up the front of the field reasonably quickly.
Yes, I don't think they'll be hanging around in this race, but there's some interesting history on the line here, because only 2 men have successfully defended the Olympic title. The legendary Abiba Bikila, who became the first black African Olympic champion, and to say that he sparked a generation of stars would be an understatement, famously kicking off his shoes in Rome, and then when he defended the title in Tokyo 4 years later, he came into the stadium so far ahead of everyone else, he was doing warm-down exercises before the second-place athlete had even entered the arena. And then the second man to defend the title, Vladimir Tsiepinski, who won in Montreal and Moscow, and even managed to get a bronze in the inaugural World Champs in Helsinki in '83. And you can't rule Stephen Kiprotich out. Some people felt that the performance he produced in London 4 years ago was a little bit of a one-off, because he's not the type of guy who's in the mix when a big city marathon's being won in high 2:03s and low 2:04s. But he absolutely proved that he's up to the task, because in 2013 in Moscow, in baking conditions, he became only the 2nd man in history to take the world title and hold the world and Olympic crowns both at exactly the same time. So Stephen Kiprotich might not be the quickest in the field, and he may not feature at the front right at the beginning if the pace is fairly hot, but he's got a really good record come the major championships, and wasn't too far away from the mix-up in Beijing last year. And then the other little bit of history that may be made today, Gurmeet Gebrselassie, the Eritrean, you may think he's an Ethiopian with that name, winning the world title last year, but still barely out of his teenage years. He's hoping to produce Eritrea's first ever Olympic gold medal. The only medal the Eritreans have ever won in the Olympics was when the legendary cross-country runner and multiple world half marathon champion Zerzené Tadesse got a bronze behind Kenenisa Bekele in the 10,000 metres in Athens. So there are loads of subplots going on here. There is history at stake for all of them as the clock ticks down to the start of the final event of the 2016 athletics program. It's going to be
Pasará,
dramatic.
And it's just as well we started our coverage early to get through that start list in London 4 years ago. We had 105 competitors. There's Galen Rupp, interesting that he's going up to marathon distance. He's a highly talented athlete, was involved in that incident with Mo Farah, of course, in the 10,000 metres where Mo Farah actually fell, and he fell across the heels of Galen Rupp, who went back and made sure that his friend and compatriot was okay. And there is the man that we were talking about, Gurmay Ghebreselassie from Eritrea, the reigning world champion. There are 155 entries in this race from 80 different countries compared to the 105 that started in London 4 years ago.
Stanley Biwott just on the right of picture. There's Lemmy Berhanu. He won Boston this year, 2:04.33, second in Dubai. But Stanley Biwott, second in that legendary race against his compatriot Eliud Kipchoge in London, becoming the 6th fastest in history with 2:03.51. And there's the favourite. He's a veteran these days. He became the world champion over 5,000 metres as an 18-year-old way back in Paris in 2003. But my goodness me, has he enjoyed an incredible transformation to the roads for the marathon. And what about this fella? 39 years of age, his very last marathon. Talk about bowing out in style. Here we go then. The clock ticking down. Such a long way, such a great story is about to unfold. It always is.
42.195 kilometres, 26 miles, 385 yards. It is one of the great adventures of the Olympic Games each and every year. And despite the fact that all of the timing devices exist along the road, the runners do things the way they always do and start their own watches. They're about to start their engines on a very soggy day.